57talk.com, Scottsdale, Arizona, back again. Our guest today is Buck Robley, veteran of the professional wrestling circles 1960s, 1970s, into the 1980s. Buck, pleasure to have you with us.
Well, Gary, it's glad to be with you. I appreciate you giving me a holler.
Buck, what state are you living in these days?
I'm in Arkansas right now.
And how long have you been in Arkansas?
Oh, in and out all my whole life, evidently. I moved back up here in 2006, so I've been here a couple of years now.
How's retirement treating you?
Retirement's been good. You know, I took myself off the road in '84, Gary. I think that was on the last hurrah, was a professional. Then I promoted after that all through South Louisiana, parts of Georgia, different places, and still promote occasionally if the opportunity arises and it's a right situation. I'll go help some people.
Buck, were you sad to see the business go the way it went? Territories out, Vince in?
You know, in a way I was the last go-around when I was in Kansas City trying to beat him. I know that Bill Watts was down in Texas with his national group, and he couldn't make it, and I was up in Kansas City, and I saw the writing on the wall. I had Paul Orndorff in there for me, and they come in and swooped in and took Paul. Paul says, Buck, what do I do? I said, Paul, I can't make you the money you're going to make with Vince. Go ahead. So that's when I kind of folded tents and told Kansas City that, I'm not going to hang around to fight him. Maybe something will come down the line for us, and we'll see what happens. Of course, it never did happen.
Buck, I remember you in the 1980s on Superstation TBS.
That's correct, Gary. I was over in Atlanta. That was another deal that they had one of the Fuller brothers. I can't remember which Fuller brother was booking the territory, and he had got Atlanta down to about $12,000 in the Omni, and they weren't happy. So I went in, and Jim Barnett was the owner, and Bill Watts and Eddie Graham, Gordon Solie, they all had a say in the area. And the deal was, when I went to Atlanta, they did not want me to work. They said specifically.
Why no work, Buck?
Because I was so devastated in the ring. My work was so convincing. My actions spoke louder than my words. I would get over quicker than anybody on the Atlanta TV, and I could control the talent, and I could control the TV. That's why they didn't want me to work. They just wanted me to use my mind and book for them. And at that time in Atlanta, as usual, you were working with people that didn't want to get beat on TV. They didn't understand the business, that you could get beat on a national TV and still draw money. A very good example is nobody but myself. I was a booker in several territories. I beat myself every night looking up at the lights and came back and drew more money as a booker and could have put myself over every night, but as for business, I saw other ways to make money. So I got into a situation in Atlanta with Tommy Rich, who was hands-on with Barnett. You couldn't touch the wildfire. Gordon Solie was coming up out of Florida with Eddie Graham's little remarks. Bill Watts was calling me and wanting me to know how I was doing. Slowly but steadily, I started putting my little crew together, and we got to rocking and rolling in Atlanta.
Oh, okay. Now, Buck, Atlanta was always big on TV in the late 70s and 80s, but the territory, attendance-wise, would go up and down pretty dramatically, right?
That's true. Barnett had a history of he wanted to call every promoter in the country and say, oh, my God, do you know I just sold this town out? Well, we might have sold the town out. We might have had every superstar in the country on the card. To me, that wasn't business. But Atlanta was the mainstay. The Omni was the main payday. Columbus, Georgia was a fair town with Fred Ward. He wanted to run it his way. He didn't want any outside help, except he wanted all the stars off Atlanta TV. When I took over the Atlanta TV, all the stars had left. Ole pulled out. Ole had gone to North Carolina. The last thing Ole said to me, he says, Buck, keep this territory alive. Don't kill it. Well, I never killed a territory. I always took a territory that was down and rebuilt it and left it in good shape when I left. And I did the same with Atlanta.
Now, Buck, when you were in Atlanta, who were the feature performers? Is this during the time of the Freebirds?
No, I brought the Freebirds over later on. I always took Bruiser Brody with me everywhere I went.
Okay.
Brody and I go back, way back in the early 70s when he first got his start. I helped him in Louisiana, helped him go on with his career through Dallas, Kansas City, St. Louis. Helped him become an independent wrestler and handled a lot of his business. Got him into Puerto Rico. After I told him we shouldn't go there, he says, just get me in. I got him in. Of course, you know what happened after that. But that's neither here nor there. But Atlanta was a tough area for us. It was hard.
But, Buck, who was on top when you were booking?
I ended up with the Freebirds, the Junkyard Dog, Bruiser Brody. I had Abdul the Butcher with me. Let me give you a little background of what happened. I shot an angle over there in Atlanta. I got on TV. The first hour I went out and I put Tommy Rich over. The second hour I come out, I beat Tommy Rich from pillar to post, and they never seen anything like it. Gordon Soley stood up and told the production crew and everybody, you can't put this hour on. There's no way the public will accept what Buck Robley did to Tommy Rich. And Jim Barnett called me that night, and he says, oh, my God, Buckles, my boy. That's what he always called me, Buckles. That's the greatest show I ever seen. It's unbelievable. Well, Gordon Soley went back and told Eddie Graham. Eddie Graham called Bill Watts, told Bill Watts that I was on TV, that you promised you wouldn't let him get on TV. And about a week later, they come with a suspension. They said, well, Ted Turner said it was the most horrible, despicable act that he's ever seen, and I'm going to keep him barred. He's going to bar me for 2 weeks from the TV.
Now, wait, Buck, what exactly was the act?
The whole deal was they didn't want me on TV. Prior to that, I had caught the house. Let me tell you, Gary, the house went from Atlanta from a 12-5, continued climb up the ladder. I did a little thing with Don Carson and Dusty Rhodes and drew like 35,000 on Don Carson's last trip. He said, Buck, help me out. I'm getting remarried. I've got a young family. I need a payday on the way out. I did a little angle with him and Dusty and got the house up to 35,000. Well, come to find out, the house was bigger than 35,000, and I approached the office about it. I said, it's bad enough that I got to go to these spot shows that you run, Barnett, and all these people running these spot shows are making more money than the wrestlers. It's not right. You're using my mind, my time, to make your area a better area, and you want to steal the gate proceeds for us? It doesn't work like that. Oh, do you think that's going on, Buckles? Well, we fired a couple of those promoters that he had running those spot shows, and come to find out the spot shows were doing a lot better. Getting back to the Omni, after I'd done that and shot that angle and did that with Tommy Rich and got myself on TV, they knew Atlanta was on its way up. So they said, you can't be on there for 2 weeks. What are you going to do? So they said, why don't you let Bill Watts come over? I said, sure, let him do what he wants to do, a figurehead for 2 weeks while you all got me suspended. I'd already given my notice to Barnett because I caught him stealing. And anybody in this game knows when I was booking, that was one of my pet peeves. I came to an area that was busted, doing no business, and if I got it drawing, I wanted the credit and I wanted the talent to have their pay. And I got Barnett. I was the one that pushed to pay the boys $100 a night. I said, if you can throw money around like this, Barnett, you can pay each one of these kids $100 every time I run a show.
Okay.
Bottom line, 100 and up.
Buck, I want to know what you were doing with the in-the-ring talent. Now, I remember that time. Bruiser Brody came into Georgia, the Freebirds, Abdullah the Butcher. You had a match, Michael Hayes against Junkyard Dog. Did you book that?
I probably did. I changed the card the last show. One weekend I advertised one way. The second week I told Bill, look, put Abdullah and Brody on top, and I'll show you what an Omni can do. And they all laughed. I said, change it. We changed it. The last night I worked the Omni, it did $85,000. What does that tell you?
What, 85,000 translates to how many?
The place was packed.
Packed.
I left after that. I went to San Antonio. Brody came with me.
Okay, hold on. You go into San Antonio. That was Joe Blanchard, right?
That's correct.
Was he national at the time?
He was in the process of getting USA before Vince ever had USA.
Okay, when you came in to work with Joe Blanchard, was he on USA Network or he was good?
No.
Okay,
We were in the negotiations.
What was Joe Blanchard's intention?
To run the USA. We weren't going to go across country. We weren't going to run against everybody like Vince did. We just wanted to have the power of the TV, and everybody could come and work San Antonio, and we were going to let our stars go out and help all of the territories.
Okay. So this is a very important time in the history of wrestling because Joe Blanchard had one of the first national shows on a Sunday morning.
Correct. I'd already left. Now, to give you a little insight on that, Bill Watts called Joe and said, look, I need Buck back in Louisiana. Fire him. So I just came back out of Japan, Brody and I. Just bought me a new home in San Antonio. Joe comes to me up in Austin, Texas, and he says, I got to let you go. I said, what? He said, I got to let you go. He said, the Bill wants you back in Louisiana. So Bill had word of what was going on. So I left. So Terry Funk and Gino and Tully got the shot with the USA TV. I'd already left.
So you originally were going to be the booker for that?
Correct.
Did you follow what Joe did with that? What was your opinion of how that went down?
I only saw one or two shows of it. I didn't see a whole lot of it. Working 7 days a week, twice on Sunday. You didn't have an opportunity to look at much TV back in our era. So I don't know what all happened. I think my last conversation, I had spoken with Joe after that, and they were paying USA too much money, and he couldn't continue to pay. Back in them days, it might have been $1,000 an hour or something. I don't know what he was paying. Might have been $2,000 that he was paying to get on USA. So, a friend of his in college helped him get USA.
So you were with Joe for a very short period of time. What happened to Joe after he left USA? Did you ever follow up with him or go back into his territory when it went regional again?
I went back when Freddie Barron took it. Freddie Barron, who worked for Fritz Von Erich, and they had the Von Erich kids, and Freddie didn't have a clue how to promote wrestling. He was a car salesman. He came in and he hired Mark Lewin back in that era, and he paid Mark Lewin $1,800 a week and told me to take Mark Lewin and Brody and make a star out of his territory. Well, the territory was already hampered and dead, and he backdoored me and brought Chavo Guerrero in, and he didn't stay long either. Territory was just drained. It had seen too much, It didn't make it. Freddie Barron had no clue how to run the wrestling area.
And what happened to Joe Blanchard?
To this day, Joe's still sitting in San Antonio, to my knowledge. Joe just kind of bowed out peaceful. He didn't want to fight anybody. He didn't want to do anything. His son became a reborn. Joe was a reborn. Don Carson was down there. He was reborn. They were recruiting people for their church, I believe. I like to speak with Joe every once in a while, but I can't ever find his phone number anymore. But Joe just kind of bowed out peaceful.
Buck, when you were in Georgia, we're going to go back to that for a moment, because I remember I didn't know you were the booker. Were you the sole booker at that point in time?
Right. I had it all.
Because that thing was red hot when Brody was in, Abdullah, the Freebirds. I remember they wrestled.
But Gary, we didn't stay long. After I caught them stealing the money, and Barnett even come and admitted it, that they were stealing money from the gate to make up for the losses that they lost with the Fullers as the promoters, I said, I don't care. You take those losses and you take your gains and we go on. You don't steal from me and the talent that I brought in here and created to get this place going again.
What was Jim Barnett really like? I mean, we've heard a lot of rumors and stories and this and that.
Well, he was all right with me. I had no problem with him. He was wishy-washy, He had a lot of money. He had connections. He always had TVs. At that time we were running Atlanta and going up into Ohio, running Columbus and Toledo and Findlay and doing shows up in Ohio, Cincinnati, and flying back into Atlanta when I was with him. The shows in Ohio did fairly well. I just never got an opportunity to explore it and really get it to going like I could have, just because of certain people in this game didn't want to see me on TV. They knew I had psychology, they knew I could work, and they knew I could keep talent. and the people would love me that watch me on TV. I could make them cry, I could make them laugh, and I could make them hate me all one time in that ring. There was nobody could take my ability from me and working in that ring, what I could do to a crowd. So that's the reason they didn't want me on that TV.
Buck, you started out in Texas way back in the 19...
Well, I started, let me give you a little background who I am. I started out as an amateur wrestler in school. And after I got into the service and got out of the Vietnam War, I was down in Florida. And Al Galento came to me. I'm sure a lot of your listeners don't know who Al Galento is. Al Galento was a amateur wrestler and a professional wrestler. He was the AUU, something out of San Francisco. And he approached me and he says, "You want to be a wrestler?" I said, I wrestled in school. I know a little bit about wrestling. He said, "No," he said, "I'm talking professionally." I said, "I've seen it on TV. I don't have any desires right now." He says, "Well," he says, "you're a pretty good sized boy." He says, "Maybe you'd like to do that." I said, "Well, I'll think about it." And he said, "Well, let me do this. Why don't you and I go down to Y, an amateur wrestler?" I was 22, 23, somewhere in that age, physically fit, just out of the service. And he was an older gentleman. I said, "Well, I'm not sure this is what you want to do." He says, "Yeah, let's go down." Well, I didn't know this man was a good shooter. And we got down on the mat, and I tried to sit out a couple of times, do a couple of takes. Couldn't get around this old man. He was loose, just feeding here, feeding there. I got up to my feet, and we locked up, and he was loose. But he was in a professional stance. He said, "Now you're in a professional stance." And he did a couple of fireman carries on me and stuff, not knowing, what he was doing. And he said, "That's all professional." He says, you're a fast learner." He says, "I can teach you this if you'll let me." So I said, "Sure, I want to learn this game," because it was fascinating to me. So he kind of took me under his wing and trained me. And he said, "Now you're ready to go out." But he said, "Let me tell you something about this game. It's an easy game. It's a learning game. And you go through stages in this game. First, you just want to be a wrestler. You just want to drive up and down the highway and make no money." He says, "You're not going to make any money. Then you're going to learn there is some money. But there's not big money just being a wrestler. There's bigger money knowing how to use your psychology and how to deal with people and how to deal with the crowds and how to put things together. That's where your money's at." Well, he never told me there was a booker and all this, but that's in a short way he did, but he didn't explain it to me that way. So once I got into the game, I went around. I worked a few little areas, putting some guys over, doing my little stuff, making 10, 20, $25, I said, no, I'm driving the highways too far, making no money. I'm not going to do this. So I got backed up and got out of it there for about 6 weeks. Then I got to thinking to myself, well, maybe if you go through a learning period, there's bigger things to be made. So I was over in Georgia working for Ray Gunkel was promoting then. Buddy Fuller was the promoter. Leo Garibaldi was the booker, the referee. And I was in there doing some jobs, just getting my feet wet and learning how to work. But everybody in the dressing room liked me. They saw there was something there. And they said, "Man, you need to get yourself moving, going somewhere. Put a little weight on and take off." So I made a phone call up to Jim Crockett Sr. in the Carolinas. And he says, "Well, this is a tag team territory." He says, "Find you a tag team partner, young man, and call me back." I said, "Well, I don't need a tag team partner." He says, "Well, who do you know in my area?" I said, "I don't know who you have for wrestling. I don't know what you got up there." He said, "Well, send me some pictures." So I sent him some pictures, and about a week later, I got a phone call from George Becker. George Becker and Johnny Weaver were doing the book for Mr. Crockett. And they said, "Look, we want you to come to the Carolinas." So I went in and told Garibaldi I'm leaving Georgia. He says, "Okay, good luck." He says, "You can't make it in this business." So I went to the Carolinas, got up to Carolinas, got in the ring, and I worked. I worked with George Scott, Sandy Scott, Rip Hawk, Sweet Hansen, George Becker, Johnny Weaver, Paul Jones, Ole Anderson, Iron Anderson, Gene Anderson, Bronco Lubitsch, Aldo Bogney. There was star after star, but everybody was tag team in there.
Okay, Buck, what year are we talking about here?
You're talking about 67.
Now the Mid-Atlantic territory became red hot as the 70s evolved and into the 80s. Was the hot territory, good attendance?
It was the best territory to be in the 60s and the 70s. Mr. Crockett paid fair. He didn't put up with a lot of stuff. He kept all tag teams in there, and I went in there and stayed. I worked about 8 months for him.
Hold on. What was you? Did you have a gimmick? The yellow shirt?
No. I just worked as Phil Robley back in those days.
Phil Robley. Were you a semi-main event, preliminary?
I was semi-main event every night.
And how many nights a week did you work?
Back in those days, we worked 6 nights. You always had Sunday off.
And were you making good money?
I was making big money. For me, that was good money. I was making $400 or $500 a week for Mr. Crockett by myself, not as a tag team. When he did tag me up, he always brought some bulldog guy in to come in. I can't remember his name, Bulldog somebody. I would be his partner, and him and I would do the tag teams.
Now, were you a wrestler or were you a brawler?
I was a wrestler.
Okay, you wrestled.
I wrestled. And like I said, all the older talent in those days liked me. They went in, every one of them spoke highly of me. Mr. Crockett got the word, hey, he worked hard in the ring every night, never bitched if he got beat or won, never caused no problem. He liked that. So then I left there.
Why?
It was time to move on, so I went to Canada.
Okay.
So when I went to Canada, I only stayed up in Canada about 6-8 weeks for the Beast and his brothers. I forgot their names. I don't know. They had a little territory on the eastern coast of Canada up there. They only run it in the summertime.
Hey, Buck, back then there were no cell phones. How did people communicate with you? How'd they get your phone number? How'd they get in contact with you?
The Beast and his brother was in the Carolinas. They saw me work. So before they left to go up and open their territory in May, they gave me a phone number. They said, we'd sure like to have you come up and work the summer in Canada for us. So that's how we communicated back then. Plus also, promoters spoke with promoters back in those days. And the Beast and his brother Rudy, I can't remember the family's name, they had their little place up there.
So you go up to Canada. Were you happy with it? Or
It was all right. We didn't work that much. It was cold. We worked in the ice arenas. We did TV out of Halifax. It was me. The Stomper was up there. Les Thatcher and I were partners. It was the whole Beast and his brother's family. It was like they brought people in to work against the family. I stayed about 6 weeks and left. Went to the Funks, called the Funks out in Amarillo.
Are we in the 1970s yet?
Now you're probably approaching 1969, 1970.
Okay, keep going.
So they didn't know who I was. They said, send some pictures. So I sent some pictures. They gave me a starting date. So I came out, worked hard, did whatever they asked. It was me. I think Bull Ramus might have been out there. Terry. Dory was the champion then. He was in and out. Ricky Romero. Whatever else Senior could put together. Senior worked himself. Every night we would work Albuquerque, El Paso, Midland, Odessa, Lubbock, Amarillo. A lot of traveling. Not big houses, but it was a fun territory to be in. Terry was my age. Dory was a couple of years older. Senior was just like one of the boys. Everything was fine. We all worked together. We made a living out of the area.
Buck, I've asked a lot of people, but I haven't really gotten a good answer. What was Dory Funk Sr. like?
He was just like I told you. He was like one of the boys. He was nothing. He never came in, raised hell. He never screamed and hollered. He only asked one thing: don't call me an old man. He said, and he could work. Senior had good psychology.
Did you see any of his? He had these bloodbath matches with Cyclone Negro and.
Well, Negro took my place when I got hurt.
Okay.
That's how Cyclone Negro got into Amarillo.
Was Dory Sr. doing some of the hardcore stuff that Terry would do later, in a way?
Well, it was for the area that we were in. It was hardcore. I mean, it was there. If you wanted blood, there was blood. There was chain matches. There were strap matches. He might have been one of the first for the extremes, yeah.
And the attendance now, if you drive through that part of Texas, it's almost like a different part of the United States in that some of it's a little sleepy. Was the attendance at times sleepy?
Well, I learned a lot out there, besides Terry and I working together just about every night before I got hurt, and they brought Cyclone in to take my place. Him and I had a couple angles going, and we were doing good with it, but everything with them would go, if you got by Terry, then you had to catch Senior. If Senior felt like putting you over, then it was Junior's turn, and Junior would beat you. So that's how the little cycle ran. So they wanted to keep bringing heels in to work through the funks. And they always kept Ricky Romero for the Spanish. The Albuquerque was a good town on Sundays. Amarillo was a good town on Thursdays. I think we worked Lubbock on a Wednesday. That was Nick Roberts' town. He promoted it. It did fairly good. Pat O'Dowdy ran Odessa and Midland. It wasn't the best town. One of the Guerreros, Gory Guerrero, ran El Paso. Then they could see that you need Mel Mascaras to get El Paso. You bring Mel in. The house, it would be a good house. You bring Mascaras to Odessa. He'd do good. Bring him in for a week. He'd do good. So it was a lot of Spanish to deal with out there, Hispanics.
But, Buck, was it dangerous?
Yes, I got stabbed out there a couple of times, got jumped a couple of times. It was a rough territory. You had to defend yourself. If, you walk out of that ring, the people would collapse on you. You had to be able to defend yourself, and you had to watch for people with knives. It was no different than any other place in that era, Didn't make any difference whether it was in Texas or Florida. I had a lot of tough scrapes in Miami, I had to run in every night and save Cowboy Buddy Colt, Ron Reed, when him and I were partners down in Florida.
Buck, were you a genuine tough guy?
I could hold my own, yes. I didn't go looking for trouble, but I wasn't going to run from it either. I had some scrapes.
Did you carry a weapon?
No.
Okay, fair enough. What happens to you after you leave Texas?
After I leave Texas, I got run over by a car, and I was a hit-and-run victim. Broke every bone in my body, my ribs, my rib cage, my sternum, my right arm, my right leg. They didn't think I'd ever get back to wrestle, walk, or do anything. And I overcame all that. So in the meantime, in Texas, they brought Cyclone in to take my place. They had to have somebody. Cyclone was working Florida for Eddie Graham. So after I mended and stayed out of the business for about a year, mending all them broken bones and stuff, I started back just a little around Texas just to see how I'd do. And then I went down to Florida. Got into Florida. Eddie Graham was running it. He had Louis Tilley as his booker. He had Hans Smith in there. He had Jack Briscoe. Jack and I were real close. He had a few other guys. Brought Ron Reed, Cowboy Ron Reed in. Paul Jones was down there. They just turned him heel. They were getting Mike Graham ready to start. So I spent some time in there. And
okay, Buck, back in this is probably around 72, 73. How was Florida as a draw? Attendance
was good. Puerto Rico, we used to fly out of Tampa on Sunday and fly to Puerto Rico, work the Bahamas coming back in. San Juan Saturday, Bahamas on Sunday. Eddie Graham was making so much money, plus whatever he was doing with the talent wasn't getting the money. I could see that, and I could work. And Eddie Graham said, I had Dickie Slater with me. Him and I were partners. And Ron Reed, I was his partner mainly. Getting him over, saving him in all the matches. And I went to him. I said, look, you're paying this guy $800 and you're paying me $4 and $5. This is not going to work. I need the same amount of money. My life's on the line. I got to go run in Miami every damn Wednesday night to save somebody, especially my partner. You're promoting him, pushing him, and I do the same amount of work and not get paid. He said, well, just do me a favor. Just help me get my kid over. He said, I'll look after you. I'll pay you extra if you'll put my kid over, if you'll let my kid work with you 6 weeks every night. I want Mike Graham to learn from you. You know how to work. You got good psychology. He said, I can't trust nobody else with my kid. So I did that for him. Of course, he never paid. I said, howdy-os.
Okay, easy. Eddie Graham, kind of mysterious to people outside of the business because in 85, the suicide. Back then, what was Eddie like, aside from not paying what you felt was fair? What was he like as a person? What was he like as a promoter?
I wasn't around him that much, to be honest. He didn't show. Every time you seen Eddie, he'd come in for a booking session with Louis Tilley. He would oversee his TV. He'd show up Tuesday night at Tampa when Tampa won. Outside of that, I didn't spend too much time with him. They said he was supposed to have the greatest mind. I went back before he committed suicide. After I left Eddie, Jim Crockett called me, and he sent Thunderbolt Patterson down. And Thunderbolt Patterson said, look, Buck, Jim Crockett Sr. wants you to call him. So when Jim Crockett Sr. called, I sent word I called. He said, look, give your notice. I said, well, I'm fixing to leave here anyway. He says, where are you going? I said, I'm going out to Oregon. He says, don't go to Oregon. I want you up here. I'm going to push you and make money with you. He said, you've been around the country now. You've got 3 or 4 years under your belt. I'll make you a superstar. So I went into North Carolina. Left Florida, went into North Carolina. Wasn't there 2 weeks, and Jim Crockett Sr. dies. That's when all hell broke loose again. I might have stayed a month at the most. At that time, Dory Funk Sr. called me. He says, I want you back in Amarillo. I says, well, I'm getting ready to get out of here. He says, what's going on? I said, this whole place is in turmoil. John Ringley's running it. George Becker, Johnny Weaver, Sweet Hawk, Sweet Hansen, Rip Hawk are all fighting for the book. The territory's falling apart. He says, give your notice and come in Amarillo. I want you on the Amarillo TV this Saturday. So I left Asheville, North Carolina, drove straight through out to Amarillo. I had a home in Amarillo at the time also. Got back home, went to that TV that Saturday, worked that TV. Funk put me over somebody. He said, look, Buck, we're having a big party at my place tonight. I want you to come out to my place. And then at that time, he had Curtis King Ikea in there, Mark Lewin. He had the Thornton boy. He had the other guy working his wrestling number something, Mr. 1, 2, or 3. Himself, Dory, Terry, myself. So I went to the function, and what happens there? That's when Senior has a heart attack and dies.
Oh.
So I said, man.
Wait, hold on, Buck. So you were there the night he died?
Yeah, in his house.
In Dory Senior's. He had a big ranch, right?
Correct.
And how many wrestlers were there that night?
All of us that worked the territory were there. Les Thornton and the other guy in Senior was shooting with them on the floor. They all busted their heads. They were actually shooting, getting on the floor and amateur wrestling, shooting.
So they're shooting on the floor.
Yeah, he's taking Les Thornton on, and this other guy that, I can't remember the gentleman, Gordon Nelson was the other wrestler who had an amateur background. He worked as Mr. Wrestling 2 or 3 or something out there.
So there's a lot of food, a lot of drinking.
A lot of drinking, food, whatever you wanted, it was happening at Seniors' parties.
So at what point did you see him take the heart attack?
He was, after he got up off the floor with Les Thornton, you know, Thornton had run his head into the cupboard or under the floor or something. Senior was kind of breathing hard, bleeding. Terry took him back in the bedroom. Nobody actually saw him go. But then that's when they all come out and said, look, we just called 911. We're getting an ambulance. The party's over. And the next day, Terry called me and said he didn't make it.
Oh, my gosh.
So I stayed and worked with Terry for a while then, and the territory wasn't going nowhere. It was me, Terry, and I'd gotten a fight at the arena with some spectator, and they wanted to sue me.
Well, but Buck, hold on 1 second. After you see Senior die, the heart attack, it's tough. He's running the whole territory, right? So the boys have to take over.
The boys take over.
Did it go straight? Could you see it going straight downhill?
Well, we were trying to make it go. It wasn't really falling right apart right then. I left right after that. I got into a fight at the arena, and the guy wanted to sue me, and Terry and him thought it was going to come back on the wrestling deal. And come to find out, the guy I beat up was a gun runner who was running guns out of Mexico, and everything, the charges were dropped, and I had left then and gone into Louisiana and started a new career, a new life. And shortly after that, that's when Terry closed the doors on Amarillo. Terry became the world champion then.
Could you see it coming?
Not really, because I wasn't there long enough, Gary, to see it.
Okay.
You know, speaking with him, even though I was in Louisiana, I talked to him. You know, Terry, like I said, are pretty close. We kept up. He was telling me what was going on, you know. And then he was fixing to become the world champion. Okay. So when he became the world champion, then that's when the territory fell out. There was no more Amarillo. I think Murdoch went back and tried to run it. I think a couple other people went in and tried to do it, but they couldn't save it. It was built around the funks. It was all funks. If you didn't have funks on your card, you weren't going to draw money. That's the way Senior built the territory. It was Terry, Dory, Senior. You beat Terry, you got Dory, or you got Senior, and senior got you to Dory. That's how it worked.
So were you there nights that the Funks weren't on the card?
There was always a Funk on the card.
Period.
But every place we went, Terry would work with me. If it wasn't me, the only place we didn't use them was Albuquerque, because they always kept Ricky Romero, the Hispanic Spanish boy over in Albuquerque. They would come over occasionally, but Terry and I worked Clovis, New Mexico, just a small town on Sundays. We would draw $4,000 or $5,000, which was big money back in that days for a little town of Clovis, New Mexico. You know, we kept that little town going.
Buck, were you having trouble? You know, you'd had this big car accident. How'd you feel in the ring?
Well, luckily, Gary, after I got all these plates and bolts and screws and stuff in me and mended and started working out again, I came back good.
Good.
I came back good. I could continue to work. I could do anything anybody in the ring could do, even though I didn't do it all the time. Back in that area, if you could head scissor, people thought that was great. If you could leapfrog you, they thought that was great. If you could drop kick, I could do everything anybody else could. But I didn't have to do it every night. I only did it like I taught Brody. Only do it when it means something, and the crowd knows you can always do it.
Buck, were you recognized a lot outside the ring?
In Louisiana, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Mississippi, I was heavily recognized outside the ring. I had a big following in Louisiana.
But Texas, pretty private.
Texas was pretty private. San Antonio, I had a decent following. Houston, I had a decent following. But I wasn't a guy that was in the bars every night either. I was business. I'd go in, do my business, and get out of town. You know, I didn't patronize a lot of bars and things.
So what's next for Buck Robley?
As a human being?
No, as after Texas.
After I left Texas,
Yeah.
That's when I shot to fame. That's when I took over and started booking, and nobody knew I could do it except myself.
Is this for Leroy McGurk?
That's when I come to Louisiana.
Okay.
This is after Bill Watts had booked Louisiana and Oklahoma, part of Texas, whatever, that town up in the Panhandle they ran, Longview, not Longview. I past Dallas. They had some town up in the Panhandle, 100 miles south of Amarillo. They used to run a town. I can't remember that town. Anyway, Bill had all that, and Bill wanted to learn, so he left and went down and tutored under Andy Graham. He went to Florida. So he took Dusty Rhodes, he took the Spoiler, Don Jardine, whatever he had in Louisiana he took and went to Florida. Whether he took all the talent with him or not, I don't know. So I think in the back of Bill's mind was he turned it over to Grizzly Smith. And he was, in the back of his mind, he would go down and learn from Eddie Graham. Then he would come back and he would take the territory from Leroy, because the territory would be dead because he had Grizzly Smith running it. He knew Grizzly wasn't a figurehead, didn't know how to do nothing. And he was pretty true to that part. So when I came in, I worked, it was Grizzly Smith and Jerry Dean. Rip Tyler was his real wrestling name. They were the bookers. They had Bob Sweetan, some guy they called Swanky, Stinky. I don't know. They didn't have much for talent. Ken Mantell was there. They had him as the junior heavyweight champion. And outside of that, there wasn't much. So I worked for about a month, maybe not even, I can't remember how long I worked, but it wasn't feasible for me, or the miles were too far. They would like to run you from home in Louisiana to Tulsa for $45, you know. Back in them days, you couldn't make it. $45 would pay for the gas, round trip, if you were lucky. Wouldn't pay for your hotel, wouldn't pay for your food. They'd run you from that one town out in Texas, all the way back through Dallas, all the way back through Shreveport, all the way over to Greenville, Greenwood, Mississippi. So when I used to get my check, I said, no, this is not going to work. Somebody's totally out of control here. So I went to Grizzly Smith and Rip Tyler, and I said, look, gentlemen, I can't work here. The miles are too much. You don't pay. You don't have anybody over. You might have somebody over, but you got no angles, and I don't see you shooting no angles trying to get me over. Now, I do have an angle. If you want to listen to it, I'll lay it out to you, and I want to work it, and it will draw money. And they laughed, and they said, no, the only way you do anything, if you lay it out to us, either me, Rip Tyler said, or Grizzly Smith's going to do this angle, and we're going to get paid for it. I said, well, it's not going to work because you're not going to get my angle. And so Leroy got word of it. And Leroy come down to TV. We used to do TV at Channel 3 there in Shreveport in the studio Sunday or Saturday mornings. And he called me in, and he says, Buck, he says, I understand you got an angle, but you don't want to do it. I said, that's correct. Matter of fact, I'm fixing to give you all my notice. And I said, I've already told Grizzly Smith I was leaving. I don't like the way they run your territory. And he says, and Grizzly says, that's right, he's leaving, Leroy. Don't even worry about him. He's going to leave. Leroy said, I want you to do the angle, and I want to know who you want to do it with, and you're not leaving. Well, that really pissed Grizzly Smith off. He says, you going over my head, Leroy? I'm booking this territory. He says, I own this territory. I pay the bills, and I'm going to listen to what Buck Robley has to say. And we're going to do his angle because I'm not making any money with you. So he asked me the angle. I told him how I wanted to do it. Told him who I wanted to do it with. I says, I want to do it with Ken Mantell. They said, well, why Ken Mantell? I said, because he's the only one that doesn't know how to work in this ring yet. He's just a young kid full of fire and vinegar. Nobody's grabbed him, settled him down, showed him how to work holds, how to work psychology, how to work with the people. I says, I can do that with him. I says, I can do it with anybody, but I'd rather work it with him because he's got just as much exposure as Rip Tyler and Grizzly Smith, and he's got a lot farther to go than those two do. So Leroy listened to it, and he said, good, let's do it. How do you want to set it up? So I said, give me 2 weeks of TV. Let me promote it. He said, what do you mean promote it? I said, let me make interviews and challenge Ken Mantell for the World Junior Heavyweight Championship. National TV. I said, you people never get to see this. First time ever, national TV, the belt's going to go up on the line. He said, let's go. So I promoted it for 2 weeks. Finally, that Saturday come, the studio was packed. People had already been programmed in to watch the TV. They knew they were going to see a great match and possibly see me as the new junior heavyweight champion. So they rang the bell. I came out. I'm cocky. I'm jumping up and down. I'm loosening. I'm ready. Come on, I said, ring the bell. Get this champion out of here. I'm going to prove to you people what a punk he is. No champion. I said, ring the bell. Send somebody out of here. So Grizzly Smith gets up and he said, well, let me find you an opponent. So they found me somebody. I whoppled him, beat him. Excuse me, in about 45 seconds. Just as they said 1, 2, 3, Ken Mantell come through the back door of that studio. He was bloody. He was beat from head to toe. He rushed that ring. As he rushed the ring, the last thing they saw was Buck Robley scooting out that ring. He was gone. Went right to a break. So now I got the people. I've got the people at home. I got the people to studio. What the hell is going on? We come out of that break, and I told him to open up with an interview with Ken Mantell, close up on his face. I had taken him, I had gigged him because he didn't like to gig himself. I took sandpaper, I roughed his face up. I took my fist, I knocked his eye down the hard way. I ripped his clothes. I did all this prior to going to the studio. Then I had him in a car, and all I had 2 people give him the signal when to hit the ring. So there they saw Ken Mantell, and he went into the promo that I gave him. And so they wanted to rush it. I said, you don't rush it. I said, I'm going to take over, Grizz. I said, you book the territory. I'll handle Buck Robley and Ken Mantell. I said, don't rush us. Let me go through stages with this. They finally got us together for the first time. Every town we went to, Gary, there was Shreveport, there was Alexandria, there was Lafayette, Lake Charles, New Orleans, Jackson, Mississippi, Greenville, Mississippi, Greenwood, Mississippi, Monroe, Louisiana. All these towns were dead. You hear me? Dead.
Dead how?
No people. No people. When I took that thing, a man telling me in, revived overnight. Houses, money.
So, Buck, people were watching the TV, but the TV wasn't good enough to get anybody to pay any money.
Correct. And that's true with everything today. Not only in my era, today. It goes on. People watch wrestling. Nobody's doing anything different today that I didn't do in the 70s, the 80s. No. A lot of my angles, yes. You still see my angles today. T-shirts. I was the first one to ever wear a T-shirt. People are watching, Gary. You said the magic word. They are watching today, but they don't have a product they want to see. Could I help them today? You damn right. I could give them angles, and I could see it just doing like it did in the 70s when I put those angles out. But will I do it? No.
So what happens with you and Leroy? You get it. You finally get an angle.
And that's exactly
the people
right.
come.
I got
the people
the whole
come out.
thing
What
going.
happens?
Everything's going good. Everything. Even though Grizzly don't know how to keep us apart and do things in stages, he wants to rush us. He wanted chain matches. He wanted 2 weeks into it. He wanted cage matches, strap matches. Anything Grizzly could do to kill it, he tried to kill it. I kept it going. By then, I got Brody in here. Stan Hansen came in. We had our own little thing. Bob Sweetan had been here all that time.
Okay.
He got revived again.
Buck, is this right before Hansen and Brody went up to the World Wrestling Federation?
Way before.
Okay, it's before. That's when Brody was Frank Goodish in
That's
the ring.
when he was Frank Goodish, and that's when I took him under my wing. I shot an angle with him in a little town called Ranger, Louisiana. When Grizzly Smith come to me and said, look, I got this big monster, don't know how to work. He's out of Texas, but he'll make us money. Take him. I want you to help him.
Did you think this guy's absolute talent?
I had no idea. I never met the guy until that night at La Ranger.
Well, when you first saw him.
Oh, when I did that angle in La Ranger, I knew it was money. When this man stood up, and look, I've been in a lot of houses. I've heard people ooh and ah. When Frank stood up and challenged me and come up on that ring, that little crowd in La Ranger, maybe 1,500, 1,200 people, whatever it was, we could get in that little building. They oohed and they awed. I knew right then. I said, look, we got money.
Because it's interesting.
Couldn't work.
It's interesting with Brody and Hansen, and they both started, and within only a few years,
Hansen and I were together in Texas. Funk started Hansen. Gary Hart found Brody and couldn't do nothing with him because Trish didn't want him. Called him a big dumb kid. Couldn't work. He needed to go work. So Gary called Grizzly Smith, and Grizzly asked me. I said, take him, bring him over here. I like people like that. Never met the man till that night.
Which was the better of the two at the time?
Worker, Hansen had more time, more ability at that time. But it didn't take Frank long. Once I got Frank and hooked up with him and got him under my arms, and he traveled the road with me and listened and learned and watched me work, he come and watched every night I went to that ring. He copied. He put everything in my repertoire into his repertoire. Did he have to use it? Never had to use it. But there were times when him and I would do different things, and I said, put that in. This is what you need to do. You learn how to drop kick. You learn how to leapfrog. You learn how to arm drag. You learn how to back. He did all that. He could do all that for a man 6'6", 300 pounds. And nobody had seen that out of a big guy. He could sell. He could register. I taught him all that, but I told him there's a time to do it and a time not to do it. A lot of people had problems with a big man. I never had a problem with him. Dead as a doornail. By that time, Hansen had left. Brody had left Louisiana. Once I give the word I was going, they all bailed out. So he got out, so he was stuck with what he had.
Okay. Now, Buck, you went into the Central States area, right?
I left.
I've talked to a lot of people, interviewed a lot of people. They all said that area was dead from the beginning of time until the end of time, which was like 1988. So you go in. Did you do something so that there was one moment in time where Central States was hot?
The greatest 2 times I saved that territory now. I went there. I left in 75, 76, I left Louisiana. That's when Bill and I split.
Okay.
First time.
Okay.
I went to Kansas City.
So what do you see when you get there?
It was horrible. No people. No people. They had TV in Kansas City. They had TV in St. Joe. St. Joe, when I went to the TV, was all Roger Littlebrook midgets. 10 midgets every Saturday night on the hour TV show. Kansas City TV, we did it out of the studio, nothing. Bulldog Bob Brown, that was it. I can't even remember what they had for talent. They had no talent.
So what are you thinking when you get there? This place, what can I do to fix it?
It's a booker's dream. I never went to a territory that was doing good. I went to a territory that was doing nothing.
Okay.
And if I could take a territory from doing nothing and put it back on the map, I got credit for it. And I told Geigo, I told O'Connor, I told Race. I said, you got nothing here. I said, can you afford to pay me? They said, what do you need? I said, I need 8 a week. They hauled around. They said, give us a week. Meantime, they wanted me to book, so I started booking. I let them go 2 weeks. I said, can you pay me the 8 a week, or do I have to leave? Really, I need 8 a week and 10% of profit after everything's said and done. They said, okay, we can do this. So then here we go. I get Kansas City. I got nothing. I got a Bulldog Bob Brown.
How was he?
Horrible.
Okay.
Horrible. I'll tell you the truth. I'll tell you who I created and what I could do.
Okay, go ahead.
So Brody's in Australia by now. He'd been calling, we've been talking, and he wanted to get out. He says, Buck, can you do something? I said, look, Frank, I got the ideal place. I'm going to bring you to Kansas City. I'm going to take care of you, and I'm going to get you in St. Louis, and I'll damn sure take care of you in St. Louis. So O'Connor was the booker in St. Louis. I was booking Kansas City, but actually I was booking St. Louis, correcting everything. Pat O'Connor as a booker, Pat O'Connor was horrible. I wanted to go on record. I'll say it. You can tell Harley Race. You can tell Nick Bockwinkel. You can tell Vern Gagne. You can tell Bob Geigel, or you can tell anybody else. You can tell Larry Matizak, Sam Mushnick. He didn't know what he was doing as a booker. All he had was a TV and access to big stars and names. That's how O'Connor booked. He couldn't put a finish together if he had to. So now, I get this. I said, listen, I told him, I said, I got this guy coming from Australia. I said, his name's Bruiser Brody. I said, he's a big man. I said, he don't take no shit, but he will listen to me. If you people will let me turn this man loose, I'll make you money. And of course, their eyes lit up. He said, can you get him in? I said, I can get him in St. Louis. I can get him in Kansas City. I can get him in Des Moines. I can get him into Wichita. That's your 4 towns. That's where you're going to make your money. And don't steal from me. So they let me bring him in, and off we go. And here we go. And the next thing you know, all those towns I mentioned to you started selling out, Gary. Started selling out.
Is this...
What does Bob Geigel think?
Wait. Is this after Brody had been in New York?
He left New York, yes. That's when he had a falling out with Vince Sr. I knew all about it. He asked me about it. That's when he wanted to go back and beat up Junior and Sam Martino for lying to him. We didn't like liars.
I've heard a lot of rumors of why Brody left in 76 because he just left abruptly. Can you tell us exactly what happened?
The deal was they promised him the belt and a title match, and they backed out on it. That's what it all was about. And they wanted to put Bruno over, and he said, to hell with it, he can get himself over. So Hanson got the spot, and I think Hanson broke his neck. That's how that happened. So Brody had already left, come with me, and after that it was all Brody Robley from 1977 all the way back up through 84. 7-8 years that him and I crisscrossed the country through, never into Louisiana. When I come into Louisiana, I told him to stay out. Because after I booked Kansas City in the 70s and caught him stealing money, I give him my notice.
Yeah, but Buck, what happened in Central States? You bring in Brody.
We popped the territory.
Yeah, but
nothing but money.
Who do you put him with? Bulldog Brown?
I put him with Brown. I put him with Kamala. I got Kamala to come in. I helped Kamala before. I got him to come in. I just kept him and Kamala. I brought Abby in a couple of times. I kept him with my own boys. I fired superstar Billy Graham. He was a world champion for New York. O'Connor had him working Thursdays in Kansas City and Fridays in St. Louis. When I took over the book and superstar Billy Graham come to the ring in Kansas City and had 19 gimmicks in his tights, pulling out chains, ropes, whatever he could pull out to beat my boys, I said, hey,
wait
you're the world champion, you're history, I fire you.
Wait, Buck, are you saying that when superstar Billy Graham was the champion?
He was working the Central States.
But why would he? I know he worked a couple of shows in St. Louis.
They wanted him for St. Louis. That was O'Connor. Like I said, O'Connor didn't know how to book.
So what's he doing in Central States?
Because they wanted him in Kansas City for the money if they thought he would draw.
He was red hot at the time in the East Coast.
He couldn't draw flies. I told Billy in Houston, when I was booking San Antonio, Paul Bosch wanted me to bring him over. I told him, I said, Billy, you couldn't draw flies. You had a body, and you had nothing to go with it. That's the truth. I told him like it was, Gary. He couldn't work. You can't work. You couldn't work for me because you couldn't draw me money. Your body's not going to draw you money. You got to be able to show those people something.
Yeah, but he drew money in the East Coast.
Yeah, because the people on the East Coast had never seen nothing but bodies. That's all they seen. They never seen no work. They didn't know how to work on the East Coast when Vince Sr. run that up there. You know that. If you go back in history and look at those matches, you'll see.
Oh, there's some truth to what you're saying.
They didn't know how to work. They all went up there and got the big money, population, New York City, 20 million people. They drew off of that. If it wasn't off the ability of the wrestlers, it was the hype and the population of the town on the East Coast that made the East Coast.
So you fired superstar
I
Billy
fired
Graham?
him. That's exactly right. I forgot who he was working with in Kansas City one night. The world champion from whatever they called him, come out, body, had everything, had his belt, started going into his tights. I had Jimmy McGuire, my referee back then. I told Jimmy after the match, I said, the next time this goof comes into town and reaches in his tights, fire him. He's history. So they brought him back because they wanted him in St. Louis. He went into his tights. I went out, stopped the match, DQ'd him, fired him. I said, look, Tony O'Connor, you take him to St. Louis? I do not want him.
Buck, wait a minute. Billy Graham's in the ring in St. Louis, and you come out of the dressing...
Kansas City.
And you came out of the dressing room and fired him while he's in the ring?
Stopped it. I said, that's it. DQ him, Jimmy. Get him out of here. I'm building the territory. I'm not killing the territory. That was my theory back then. I was building. And what I had to build on wasn't a superstar Billy Graham. He wasn't going to make me a dime. He did not make me a dime. He did not make St. Louis a dime. Call Larry Matizak and ask him to see what the houses were when Superstar was down there. He didn't stay long. O'Connor got the picture real quick.
Larry told me that Sam had him, I think he no-showed against Bobo Brazil, and that was it.
Well, he might have, because I fired him in Kansas City.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the truth. But anyway, get past all that.
Okay, keep going.
I got it going. And then this takes us up into the maybe 77, 78 then.
Yeah.
So now I'm pissed at Geiger, O'Connor, and all of them because they never paid my 10%. All they paid me is $8 a week. They owe me a bunch of back money. I caught them stealing, and then finally I said, hey, I get my notice. I could gone to Florida. Eddie Graham called me. He wanted me to come to Florida. Crockett's called me in the Carolinas. They wanted me to come to the Carolinas to book. I was hot. Anybody that could go into Kansas City and take a tombstone and present people in the arenas, they knew you had to have something working for you. And I did it. So then I said, yeah, let me, I'm going to go back to Louisiana. I got a home there, and I'm going to talk about it. Well, Bill Watts got word of it. And he called. He said, Buck, he says, on your way out of Kansas City, can you stop through Tulsa and work and let me talk to you? I said, yeah. So I come through, put Mike George over. Bill knew that I didn't care if I put George over. I had Mike George in Kansas City. He couldn't draw, So I put him over in Tulsa, and we sat down and talked. And he said, look, my territory's not too good shape, Buck. Yeah? What happened? Well, after you left, the bottom kind of fell out. And he had Ernie Ladd as his booker. He had Jody Hamilton as his booker. He didn't have nothing, but he called it, Jody Hamilton, the original assassin. Jody and I were good friends. He had him and Frank Morrell. Frank Morrell was a real good friend of mine. I brought Frank in, Louisiana's the Angel, and did some things with him. And Frank and the Hunter, Timmy Hunter, was that Hunter boy out of North Carolina, who was up there in North Carolina when I was there. They had him as the manager. So I told Bill, I said, well, let me come see your TV. Let me see what you got. I said, I've got to make a decision here in a week or two. I got to call Eddie Graham or Jim Crockett and tell him, Junior, and tell him if I want to take their job as a booker. And he says, well, I sure need you here, Buck. He says, I think you can really help me. So I looked at his TV. I had a home there in Shreveport. I said, Bill, I'm going to stay here. I said, call those two promotions, tell them you got me. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to take your book, and I'm going to make your territory one more time. So he said, what can you do? So I said, well, you don't have much to work with. I said, all we got is you and me. I said, I need to shoot an angle here with Frank Morrell and Jody Hamilton and Hunter. I said, that's all you got. He said, well, what can you do? I said, well, give me 2 or 3 weeks of TV. Let me challenge Hunter. Hunter was manager of Frank Morrell and Jody Hamilton. So I made that challenge, and I kept bringing letters to the TV every Saturday, showing Hunter all the results we got from this challenge. These people want to see you and me, Hunter. They want us in the ring. And his theory was, I'm not a wrestler. I'm a manager, Buck Robley. You know that you can wrestle and manage. I'm just strictly a manager. I don't get involved. And we built this, and we built it for 3 weeks. And the final thing was I come back out and I make this challenge one more time. I said, either it's going to happen this week, I'm going to drag you in this ring, Hunter, and I'm going to prove to the people that I can kick your butt, and we're going to get it on. He said, please, don't do this to me. And I turned to walk away from him. He turns me around and sucker punches me. I got Jody Hamilton and Frank Morrell right with him. I'm in a suit and and a tie, white shirt. Nobody knows this angle except Bill. I mean, I told Bill what to say on the interview. They take me down. They beat the totally dog shit out of me. They run me into that iron ring post with my shoulder, my chest. They stomp, they rip. I gig my chest. Nobody's ever seen a wrestler gig his chest. Nothing but a pool of blood. Crimson shirt is all, the white shirt is crimson red, pool of blood on TV, on the floor where I gigged that chest. Like I said, nobody's ever seen a wrestler bleed from his shoulder or his chest. So we go to black. When we go to black, I get out, get back to the dressing room, I take the clothes off, I give that T-shirt to Bill, or that white shirt to Bill. I said, you take that white shirt with all that blood, and when it comes up on red, I said, you make the promo of your life, that you've never seen anything like this, you'll never see anything like this again, and Buck Robley and I are going to join the Army, and we're going to clean house. And he went out, and he made a hell of a promo. So now I got Bill Watts as my partner. So I take 2 weeks off to let my shoulder heal, finally get that wound closed, and here we go. Bill Watts and Buck Robley against whatever he called that team. I don't know if they were the Assassins or the Spoil. I don't know what he called them. And the houses started going. He couldn't believe it. Could not believe it. The houses started taking off because I was still over in all of Mississippi, all of Arkansas, all of Louisiana. The houses started drawing. Oklahoma City, we popped it. Tulsa, Oklahoma, we popped it. Little Rock, Arkansas, we popped it. Well, we could never draw houses. We popped them. Lake Charles popped again. Lafayette popped again.
Well, Buck, we had Bill on the program just the other day, and he said that you were a very good booker, tremendous booker, a lot of original ideas. I remember you two teamed up in the Superdome, one of the first Superdome shows, right?
We were together in the Superdome first time. But let me tell you something I did way prior to that, Gary, before we ever went to the Superdome. I tried closed-circuit TV. When I brought Terry Funk in New Orleans, I worked all my angles I could with Mantell, and I sold Leroy on the closed circuit. New Orleans, we had an empty building right next door, and I said, look, we can put closed circuit in there and sell more tickets. And I brought Funk in to work with Mantell, and the closed circuit didn't work, and they rioted on the other side of the stage. And so we had to give the money back, but I knew I was way ahead of my time.
Buck, wait a minute. You said the territory wasn't drawing, so why would you need closed circuit?
I did closed circuit because I couldn't get, I sold the arena out. I couldn't get people in. I sold the other room.
Okay, so
I was way ahead of myself. I was the first one to try that. I told Funk, look, I said, you and Mantell are going to sell out. I think we can only put 3,500 people in this building. I said, I know it's going to sell out, so I sold Leroy on the deal of closed circuit. I said, I can put another 800 people in another room in this same building, but they can't see there's a brick wall separated them. Not the stage, a wall. So we went for it and it didn't work. We had to refund the money.
Okay, wait. You're doing closed circuit. Are you doing a lot of cameras? Is it just like a regular TV production?
Yeah, it didn't work. They couldn't get it in the next door.
So there was a technical difficulty. They couldn't see it. The people in Louisiana, they go nuts, right?
Yeah, they rioted. We refunded the money. So that's how far ahead I was with myself and my ideas. But getting back with Bill and I, so we did this. We got the territory together going. At that time, we still had local promoters. Local promoter in Monroe, local promoter in Baton Rouge, local promoter in Shreveport. Leroy owned part of Shreveport. Local promoter in Alexandria. But it all went on. It went fine. Everything went good. We're all making money, bills, but he was paying better than anybody else in the country at that time because he wanted the bragging rights. So as we go on, he says, I said, we got to get new talent. I said, I can only run with these guys so long, we need to get somebody in. He said, well, look, I got a call from somebody calling themselves the Freebirds. You want them? Who are they? I said, I didn't know Michael Hayes, Terry Gordy from Adam and Eve. He said, I don't know. Let me show you the pictures. So I said, bring them in. Junkyard Dog was up in Stu Hart's territory in Canada. And Jake the Snake was working with me. I took Jake the Snake in Kansas City in the 70s with me, and his dad, Grizzly, was down here, so I got him into Louisiana, got him down here. And Jake had been to Canada, and he told me, he said, when I got the word on Junkyard Dog, he said, Buck, he's just a big black boy that can't work, but he said he might be able to help you. I said, bring him down here. Call him up, Jake, tell him to come down here. I'll take a shot with him. So when he got in here, I got the Freebirds. They didn't know how to work. They were young. Michael Hayes was 18. Terry Gordy was 16. So I said, well, there is some money to be made with these kids, especially with Hayes. Gordy could work, Hayes couldn't. So it took me a while to figure out how to get around, do something with him. So Buddy Roberts called me, and him and Jerry Brown had split up, and he says, can you give me a job? I said, Buddy, I got a damn job right now. Come in here. I need you. I said, I'm going to put you with the Freebirds. I'm going to make Michael Hayes a manager. I said, Michael Hayes can't work. I need somebody who can lead Terry Gordy. Terry Gordy can work his ass off. I said, he's young. He's got a body. He's natural. I said, you're a good leader. I needed somebody to lead him. So I went and told Bill, I said, I'm going to take Hayes out of the ring, and I'm going to put Buddy Roberts in the ring, and I'm going to make a manager. So I went and told Hayes. Michael Hayes said, no, you're not. I said, well, Michael, it's like this. You either go with the idea or you leave. I said, you can't work. I said, you might learn how to work down the road, but right now you can't work. I need a leader in the ring. I'm going to shoot a little angle with you, and where I get you out of the ring, get you on the floor as a manager. You can talk. So he went to Bill, and Bill backed me up. And he said, whatever Buck says goes. So we did it.
There you go.
And I did a little thing where I pile drived him, got him out of the ring, got Gordy with Roberts. Now I got a leader in there. Now I got Michael Hayes on the floor doing the talking. I got everything I need. I got Bill Watts as my partner. I don't know. I had anybody who could work was my partner, because I could carry the match, I could sell, I could make a comeback, and I could damn sure talk on that damn microphone to draw a house. So it didn't make any difference who my partner was. So whoever it was, I went after the Freebirds. Then shortly after that, I brought the dog in. And I brought the dog in. Dog couldn't work. All he could do is stand in the ring, flex this big body he had, tell about playing for the Green Bay Packers. You know, well, who cares what you did in the past? I need to make money with you. So they wanted to get rid of him, and I told Bill, I said, no, I don't want to get rid of this kid yet. He said, well, everybody complains he's too stiff, he can't work. I said, well, just let me go around. So I took him for a couple of weeks, and I booked myself against him just to work with him and talk to him in the ring, which I did every night. So I come back and I told Bill, I said, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to shoot an angle with the Freebirds, and I'm going to let the Junkyard Dog save me. He said, what? I said, I'm going to shoot an angle with the Freebirds, and I'm going to let the Junkyard Dog save me. I said, we're going to have the salt and pepper, first time in Louisiana, black boy and a white boy. He said, you know what you're doing? I said, yeah. I said, I'm going to create a monster. So here we go. I got in the ring and let them Freebirds do whatever they did. And, of course, I was the best with the blade, so fast, so quick, nobody knew. I'd have an ear bleeding, an eye bleeding, an arm bleeding, and nobody knew how it all happened. And I'm just totally annihilated again. I sent the Junkyard Dog out to save me. He come in the ring, and all I asked him to do, I said, just let him hit you guys once, fly for him. I said, if you don't fly, I can't get him over. They flew. Buddy Roberts was the best little flyer I seen. Terry Gordy took a hell of a bump. Michael Hayes scooted and ran like he was supposed to do. And there I am, the dog standing over me. And I'm just nothing but a pool of blood. I said, this is going to work. Bend down here where you can listen to me. I said, pick me up. So he picked me up. I held his hand up, and I was staggering, and he helped me out of the ring. And I told Bill, I said, look, they call this guy the Junkyard, so now we got to give him a junkyard. We give him a wheelbarrow, put a transmission in it. Put me in the wheelbarrow. I said, put me in there. You push me to the ring every Saturday. I put pots and pans, battery cables on me. We went to a ring like we were the circus. He'd wheel me to the ring, roll me in the ring. I'd take that pot and pan off my head. I'd whip them battery cables off, and I would kick ass. And the Junkyard Dog would stand in the corner because he couldn't do nothing. And I'd give him the tag and let him do whatever his finish was. 1, 2, 3. This went on, this went on, this went on. This is how I created the monster. Then it come down to doing something with the Freebirds. I said, look, we all had long hair back in that era. I told Michael Hayes, I'm going to put my hair up against you on TV, and one of us is going to lose our hair. No, we're not. I'm not losing my hair. You don't understand. I'm going to be a rock and roll star, and this hair is my thing. I said, if it comes down to you losing your damn hair, you're going to lose your hair. I'd already cut Paul Orndorff's hair one time in Louisiana. So Hayes was worried about me taking his hair off, and I built this. And I told him to make some concoction, get all this stuff, and put it in this bottle. And we're going to sell this bottle. So you bring this bottle to TV every week, and you take the lid off. And it stunk. I mean, it stunk. So finally I said, this is the time we're going to do it. We're going to do it down in New Orleans. Get Gordon Soley to send his kids over. Gordon Soley's sons were good with a camera. They could work a camera. They come in and filmed it. I did a deal where I got the dog out of the ring. It's me taking on Buddy Roberts, Terry Gordy, and Michael Hayes The dog's knocked out on the floor of the ring, and I end up somehow getting to 1, 2, 3. As I got to 1, 2, 3, Hayes was back on me, beating the hell out of me. They were going to go ahead and put this concoction on my hair. We got all this going down on film. The dog come up off the floor at the right time to make the save, just as he went to save me, and Hayes had a handful of whatever the stinking gunk was. He got it into the dog's eyes. I got the dog blinded. I got the dog out of the building. I had him scream, roll, scream nothing but eyes. I'm blind, and the building went quiet. You've heard that story before. When wrestlers tell you the building goes quiet, nobody responded. It went silent, dead silent. I said, we got him, got him. Don't worry, we got him. Cut back, got the thing developed, got it back on TV, and this is how we started. And we started making these promos, and we started building for the Dome. And he said, how are we going to bring it back? I said, we're going to bring the dog back against Hayes in a cage. And we built it, and we built it. At that time, the Dome was set up for 25,000 people, Gary. I was in New Orleans early that Saturday. They called and said, Buck, we've sold out of tickets. What are you going to do? I said, add 3,000 more seats. Every night I set those angles up and those finishes.
I think that's what hurt the Freebirds as time went on, was Michael got more into the ring on a regular basis.
Well, here's what Michael Hayes did. Now, I'll give you a good example. Michael Hayes come to me in Louisiana. He says, do you mind if I take every finish down that you do, every angle that you do, and take it with me? I said, I don't care, Michael. So when I give my notice, they came to me and asked me not to leave, the Freebirds and the dog. They said, Buck, don't do it. So I went ahead and did my part. Michael Hayes did what he said. Michael Hayes took those ideas and angles to world class and turned around and shot them with the Von Erichs, and that's where Michael got his name. That's where he got famous, using my ideas and my angles against the Von Erichs. So I don't hold nothing against him for doing it. That's business. If he was smart enough to do it, and probably to this day in New York, you see him using my angles and ideas with a different twist. That's just business.
Now, Buck, I hear you continually talking about the different promoters, and you're upset with them, and they're not paying you. And there's no question that some of these ideas you had were way ahead of their time. But what would they say about you? I mean, did you have issues? Were you difficult to deal with?
I wasn't difficult to deal with. The only difficulty they ever had with me was if you didn't pay. If I thought that the houses were bigger and better than what you say they are, and the money's not on my check, and my boys are running up down this road and not getting rewarded, that's when they heard from me. And that was where everybody said, listen, just keep your mouth shut. Just be in the office. Everything's fine for you. It didn't work that way for me. I wanted everybody to be rewarded. If you worked for me, you were rewarded.
Did you have issues with alcohol?
I drank, but I didn't have no problem with alcohol.
Did you have any issues with drugs?
I smoked. I didn't like everybody else in my era. I didn't have no issues. I could go and come and do what I wanted, and I lived a free life, and I was good the night I performed, and when I booked, I was there. What I did in between was my business. I used to go to the racetrack. I bet racehorses. Still bet racehorses today. I do not drink, drugs, or nothing anymore. In my era, I did, but I didn't have issues and problems with it. I never got busted for anything like that.
Well, Buck, the entire country saw, pretty much the entire country saw Georgia television between 1978 and 1985. And the time that I remember in particular, and I didn't even know before this interview that you had booked it, was the time you brought in Bruiser Brody. A lot of that stuff is still on YouTube today. I mean, you have to, if you were booking at that point in time.
I did the best angle ever in Atlanta, Georgia. I told Brody they sent what's a big Butch Reed over from Kansas City. They said Butch Reed came in and wanted to work. I said, Butch, look, I got Brody coming in. I says, the best I can do is let Brody slap you one time and maybe get a couple shows with you. But after that, I said, you can't work with Brody. So I brought him in, and I had Brody open-hand him on TV and almost knocked him over when Brody open-handed him. They could hear that. Then I told Frank, I said, look, we're here at Turner Station, and every Saturday we come here and do tape. I got to do something different with you to get you over. I said, you see over here, there's a chair. There's a place for the handicapped. There's wheelchairs and stuff there. I says, today, I got a big old boy with you, Frank. I said, we're going to do something. I said, we're going to beat him up, and you're going to throw him out of the ring. Then you're going to wheel him up there to Gordon Soley, and you're going to make a promo with him in the wheelchair. And I said, if you can hit it to run him into the ring post, that's fine. We'll do that, too. So Frank, right on cue, he says, you sure we can do that? I said, look, I run this TV. I've been here long enough. I've seen these wheelchairs and handicapped people. I said, said, just don't hit the handicapped people. Put this guy in a wheelchair. I said, Gordon Soley will hate you if you do this. Sure enough, he beat this guy up, threw him out of the ring, put him in the wheelchair, and if this angle's still out there, it's the greatest angle I ever did to get Brody over, and God bless the guy that did the angle with him. I forgot the boy's name that did it.
Buck, it is still out there. It's on YouTube. All you have
Brody
to do is...
was wheeling him up to make an interview with Gordon Soley, and the kid had overheard his talk, and when Brody started for that ring post, the kid took it beautiful. Brody wheeled him into it. His head hit that ring post, bounced back into that wheelchair. Brody wheeled him over there to Gordon Soley, and Brody put his hand on top of Gordon Soley's head, and he started interviewing. Gordon Soley went nuts. When that finally got to black, he came back. He cussed me. He screamed at me. He said, Eddie Graham won't let you do this. You cannot. This is not wrestling. I said, it's the greatest angle ever. Brody's over. Have a good day, Gordon.
Buck, that stuff was classic. And in fact, if Georgia had continued down that road, they didn't continue.
Gary, if I had never quit, never walked, just got myself on TV, I had Brody over. I worked a big house in the Omni, drew $80,000 for him. One time only I put Brody and Abdullah together. That's when all the scuttlebutt was that Abdullah wasn't going to show. He didn't want no part of it. They didn't know Abby, Brody, and I had been together for years. Years. There was no hustle in the dressing room, no problems. Abby knew his part. Brody knew his part. I knew my part. We would have made money. And I'd have been over. I'd have worked with Tommy Rich. No telling where we could have taken that era. But there was people, Eddie Graham, Gordon Soley. They did not want me to get over. I'm telling you the truth. I don't care how they speak of me today.
Well, I don't know about that,
else.
Buck.
They did not want me on that station and get over.
Well, Buck, why wouldn't they want that if you're making them money?
Because I could steal all the talent. I would have been the first one to control the TV. They were probably scared that I'd have gone to their towns and taken their towns from them because I had all the talent. There was one thing. Talent followed me. Talent liked me because I treated them as humans. I appreciated what they did. I didn't scream at them. I didn't cuss them out. I treated them like human beings, and they felt like they loved me, and they would do whatever I asked. That's how talent worked for me. I could get anybody, anytime, and they liked it.
I can't speak for... I thought Mid-South had great wrestling after you left, but I can speak for Georgia. Ole took that thing right down the drain after you left.
It was down the drain when I got there. He come right back out of North Carolina. First they brought George Scott in. When I told him I told Barnett that I was leaving, that you were stealing money, he come and admitted it. I said, I don't work that way.
What was Ole Anderson like?
Ole was a screamer, a holler, and do this and do that, and wanted all the money. I'm not saying Ole wasn't good for the business in his era and what he did in Atlanta, but around me, he was nothing. I watched him. He brought me back to Atlanta to help him. Couldn't get along. Only stayed 1 week, 2 weeks. I said, hey,
were you
let
the
somebody else do this crap
Were you the one that set up Junkyard Dog and Michael Hayes in the Omni?
Yes.
That was great.
When it set Brody up, I said, I'm the one that took the talent. That's the reason they didn't want me to have TV, and they didn't want me to make money.
Sure.
Same thing in San Antonio. Now, you leave Atlanta, Buck, you go to San Antonio, Joe Blanchard takes you. I start booking there. I got Houston rocking and rolling with Paul Bosch. Nobody could get along with Paul Bosch. I got Brody. I got to put up with Nick Bockwinkel because Paul Bosch wants him in there. But I got Brody. I got Brody in San Antonio, and I got Brody in Houston.
Buck,
because
maybe he needed you.
Louisiana was dead again.
Buck, maybe he did need you.
He needed me. He knows it.
So how's that a dirty cross?
Because he needed me to come back and save his territory, then that's when him and I really fell out. That's when Bill was going 7 days a week, twice, 3 times on Sunday. I said, I'm not working that much.
Well, maybe
I'm not making all these towns, book these towns, Bill, and run up and down this damn highway for you. So he called me in. He says, where are we going? He says, I need Brody if you're not going to be here. I said, Brody's at my house in Shreveport. I says, I'm not going going to run that. He says, you and I are going to split, but do me this favor. Get Brody for me. I said, Brody's at my house. Call him right now, Bill. I said, you talk to him. If you want him, you think he can save you, call him up. He's in my house sitting with my wife, my child. I said, he'll work for you if you present yourself right and pay him. He didn't call. I went home. Frank said, what are we going to do? I said, we're not working here. I said, I'm done. He says, you're not? I'm done too. He says, where you want to go? I says, I don't know. Let's go over and help Blackwell. He says, let's go. So Jerry Blackwell was in Atlanta. We go back to Atlanta. And what little Jerry Blackwell had going for him, we kept it going. In the meantime, Frank was working in and out of Puerto Rico. That February, he had the problem with Gonzalez. Told me all about it. I said, that's the reason I didn't want to take you to Puerto Rico to start with. Now you see, he says, look, I'll go to Puerto Rico. I'll call you every night. I'll let you know what's going on. I had Abdullah in Atlanta. I had Mr. Wrestling, too, the original Mr. Wrestling. I had Dickie Slater. I had myself. I had a good crew. Little Blackwell had a one-horse TV station, and we were working in a rodeo arena in Atlanta, but we were drawing money on that Sunday in that arena, but Jerry didn't have the money to keep it going.
This is around 87, 88.
This is the end of it. This is when Frank goes to Puerto Rico. He calls me. Everything's fine. He called me from San Antonio. I talked to him. Barbara, good. Went to Puerto Rico, and they made him my partner on TV, Buck. Everything, no words. Everything's good. He didn't call me Saturday. Abdullah called me. I said, what? He said, look, they killed Brody last night. I was leaving Atlanta to get on an airplane to go to Puerto Rico. Blackwell stops me, or I'd have went right down there. I'd have been gone. I'd have beat Barbara there. I had a book flight from Atlanta right into San Juan. Abdullah was coming out of Puerto Rico back into Atlanta and saw me. Said, don't do it, Buck. Don't go down there. He's dead. You can't do nothing. So I finally calmed down, got quieted. Okay. Then 2 or 3 days passed. Barbara finally gets to bring his ashes home. I talked to her. Okay. I'm in Atlanta trying to keep the little territory going. Blackwell runs out of money. That's probably about the end of it. Then I started one more time in the 90s down in New Orleans. A guy had come with me with about 30,000. I got us on a Fox show. I got Paul Orndorff to come back into work. Got everything going. He runs out of money. That's when I said, hey, I put my hands down. I'd helped Vince a couple of times to get licensed in Louisiana. Vince didn't help me. Brody and I had a date with Vince. We canceled the date. I was in St. Louis. This is what I tell you about Vince McMahon. He wants to meet Brody and me at St. Louis at the arena, 7 o'clock, be there sharp, blah, blah. We're there at 6:30. 7 o'clock comes, no Vince. He's out doing 19,000 TVs out of the Kiel Arena, killing that damn place. I don't know how many shows he did. Finally, at 11:30, he comes upstairs to meet with us. I said, first of all, I don't know you. I'm Buck Robley. He said, well, I'm Vince Jr. I said, let me tell you something, Junior. My time is just as valuable as your time. You told me to be here at 7. We would talk, and we would go from there. Now, he says, nobody talks to me. I said, hey, he says, you're not that damn big. I said, I don't have to be big. I got a mind, and I can work, and I can outwork anything you got in the ring. I said, you want me, you pay Brody, we'll work. So we settled down, got the argument out of the way. Finally, Brody and I took a date to go to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, to make TV. So I was living in St. Louis at the time. Frank was in San Antonio. I got to thinking more about that. I said, I don't need him. He don't need me. All he wants to do is beat Brody up. It's not going to happen. Maybe he'd get Brody one shot with Hogan. I'm not going to chance it. I called Frank. I said, Frank, what do you think? You want me to call him? I said, I'll call and cancel them dates. I just got a feeling he's going to put us over and beat you and tell everybody he did it. I'm not going for it. He said, call it. And I told Larry Matizak to put that in his book, and he wouldn't do it. He was scared to confirm that and put it in his book. That is a true story. Brody and I had a date, TVs. I called and canceled.
Buck, were you going to be his manager?
I was everything. I would have been his manager. I could have worked. It didn't make any difference. Vince was stabbing at straws. He was getting everybody's talent from him. He didn't know what he had. You know that. I told a couple of boys to go to him. I told Ted DiBiase, who worked for me many times. Not the one that he's got now, Teddy that lives over in Jackson. I took him with me on the road. Taught that boy how to work, how to promo, how to sell, how to register. He passed it on to his dad. I told him, he called me, he says, Buck, he says, what should I do? Atlanta offered me this money. Vince offered me $600,000-$700,000. I said, Teddy, you go to New York. He said, what are you doing? I said, I'm not going anywhere. I wasn't working. I wasn't working for nobody. I was betting racehorses. I said, I'm not going anywhere. He said, okay. He went to New York and made a lot of money. I mean, I can tell you a lot of things, but we're running out of time. You've had me on this thing now going on 2 hours, Gary. But that's kind of the history of Buck Robley. That's the true story of Buck Robley. When he started, when he finished, the people he ran into, the people he influenced in the game, still have an influence. Do I have ideas that could help him today? I sure do. I told Nick Foley up over there in TNT one time, we had a short conversation, you need help. You're only 2 or 3 people away from making it, but you got to have an angle and you need help. Never heard back from him. I haven't seen the show since, but according to some people that talk to me, their numbers are way down. I don't know where they're going. Vince always needs help. He has to recreate what he's got, try to get something flush, new in there. Keep himself off of TV would be the best thing. It's more of a cartoon show than it is about anything else. That's the way he wants it. He needs to do a couple angles. He ought to ask Michael Hayes to call Buck Robley, and I'd give him a couple angles if he'd take care of Buck Robley. But Vince and I don't see eye to eye. We don't get along. He screwed me twice, helped me once. Shame on me. He'll never get to me again. And that's the truth. I won't go into details about any of that, but I have been in dealings with Vince.
Buck, when's the last time you were able to wrestle physically?
I physically quit in 94, somewhere in there, Gary. Then since that time, I shattered my left ankle. If they could make a wrestling boot and get it over my ankle, I could still go in the ring this day and perform and outperform a lot of guys I see on TV, I promise you. And I don't look at TV that much, but when I do look at it, I promise you, I might not be as fast, as quick as I was, but I bet you I could register. I bet you I could sell. I bet you I could still smile. I bet you those people would still cry. They would still boo, and they would still yay the colonel to this day because I had that knowledge in that squared circle.
Wow.
That's the truth.
Buck, are you in a lot of pain, injuries from the ring?
I'm in serious pain all the time, Gary. I'm in up with arthritis. My knees are shot. But I'm not to the point where I'm like where I saw Ole Anderson at one of those reunions on a cane. I'm not bitter. He's bitter. I'm not bitter. I'm happy. I'm happy to be alive. I'm happy that I can walk. Even though I don't have the use of one arm that I used to have, I got the right arm that never healed right. I always wore a brace on that right arm to protect that bone. It never mended right. I've got an ankle that looks like a grapefruit on my left ankle, and I'm beat up. Arthritis, but I can walk. I'm happy. I'm not bitter. I'll never be bitter. The business will continue. It'll only rehash itself, Gary, just like it did from the days that I saw TV, when I saw Gorgeous George work, where I worked with Lou Thez, where I worked with Buddy Rogers. I've worked with the best, and I've seen it progress.
Who do you keep in touch with today from the business?
I talked to Skandor Akbar. I talked to Kenny Lucas, who is from Phoenix, Arizona. Kenny's down in Pensacola. I saw a lot of guys at the reunion. A lot of people can't keep up with me because I just dropped out of sight for a while. Knowing the phone numbers, Larry finally hunted me down and wanted to do the book, I guess I existed and Larry found me. If people looked hard enough, they could have found me. I talked to a lot of young kids that called me today, a lot of ex-wrestlers, promoters that want to promote, but nobody has the money. Nobody has the time to set it up. They go to the right person. They come to me, but they don't have the backings to get it done. Now, could I go out and do it? I promise you I could. I could probably start small again, one TV, start creating and building. Would Vince take the talent? Eventually he would take the talent, but not before I got what I could get out of him before he got him.
Does it frustrate you that you didn't get to use your creativity all these years?
I was pretty creative. The T-shirt was me. I was the first wrestler to ever wear a T-shirt. The entrance, changing the logos, changing the music. That's all Buck Robley. All that still goes today. When I put a T-shirt on in 1977, they said, you can't wear that. It was a picture of me. I said, watch. I'm going to have this guy make a picture of me, put it on a yellow shirt, and put Nobody Calls Me Yellow. I created that. Now how many people do you see do it? That's all Vince has got. He hustles T-shirts. He wanted Mike Sharp to be like Buck Robley. He put a brace on Mike Sharp and took him to New York and beat him up because he thought he was beating Buck Robley. He wasn't beating Buck Robley. He was beating somebody that Vince thought was Buck Robley. Mike Sharp couldn't warm me up. I had Mike Sharp in Louisiana. He couldn't warm me up in the ring. You know, I'm not bitter. I'm not bitter at all. I just sit back and laugh. I really do. Everything, a lot of stuff you see today, Gary, is my idea is just twisted and turned. It's all still goes full circle.
Thank you, Buck.
Thank you, Gary. Now, listen, Gary, I want all your listeners to call you, and you get back in touch with me. You've got my number. I don't want it out on the airwaves.
No.
But if anybody wants to hear about me, talk to me. They go through you, and you screen the calls, and I'll get you a couple of wrestlers down the road that you can interview, especially the one from your home, Kenny Lucas. Kenny Lucas was a star in the 70s, 60s through Tennessee. You want to find out about Jarrett, Nick, whatever his name was over there, the Thieves, Goulas.
Yeah.
All those guys. Kenny worked for those people, the Field brothers in Mobile. He can tell you about how promoters stole money back in that era just the same as I did in my era. But he's got a lot of good stories and a lot of good things. He was a well-respected man. I took him every place I went with me, too. I can get you him. He can help you out. I'm going to help you out with that other man you asked me about. I just got to go through a little red tape. But you tell all your wrestling fans to have a good day. I'm glad I got to speak with you and let them know that I'm alive, breathing, and I can still perform better than half the people they see today.
Buck Robley.
You got him. Have a good day, Gary.
Thank you, Buck.
Thank you. Bye-bye.